We're talking today with Bill Dudas of Jenison, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Now, Bill, can you begin with some background on yourself? To begin with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Sawyer, Michigan, outside of Benton Harbor.
In what year?
And in 1924.
Okay. Now, did you grow up there?
Yes, until I was 16. And as I signed up for my mother signed the slip for me to get in the Army when I was 16. And my father had a fit. I can remember hollering about that.
Okay. Now, the rule at that point was that you had to be 17.
It had to be 17, but it was getting up there on September 10th is my birth date. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to, everything kind of fell into place. And then I met my uncle who was in World War I. And he said, if you do anything, get in the artillery. So I did. I just used the word artillery.
Okay. Now, let's back up a little bit. While you were living in Sawyer, what did your family do for a living?
I lived with my grandparents.
Okay.
And my grandfather was an architect and contractor from 1889 to 1933 on the World Affairs. Came from Paris, France. He came from Paris, France, married my grandma, and she was from Paris, France also. And that was in Sawyer, Michigan, on our Great Lake, Michigan. Mm-hmm. And there's complications of here because there's years in that one-room school I went to. And I enjoyed it very much. And kind of freedom, that's what I had there. And I had one sister and two brothers with my regular family. Mm-hmm. And my grandma asked if I could come and stay with them, and that's what I did.
Okay. And how old were you when you went to live with them?
4.
Okay. Now, was this just because it was...
Some family tension.
Yeah, okay.
There, as you'll see in my history book.
All right. So basically you're pretty much brought up by your grandmother then?
Just for 3 years, and then she passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you go back to your mother at that point?
Yes, I went back to my mother and father. Okay. Oh, yeah.
All right. And then you said so when did you actually enlist in the Army?
In July 29th of 1943.
Okay.
Lots of things happened in that till I got up to that.
Right. Now, do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I heard. My father heard about it. He called me and called us all there. And then the phone rang, and the newspaper that I delivered paper for said that they were driving extra papers. That's what it said on the front, extras. Chicago, Detroit, and the New Palladium from Benton Harbor. St. Joe, the twin sister, didn't have a paper yet. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have to go out there and start selling extras or just delivering them?
Yeah. Sunday night, we had the papers, and we were taking our route, our paper route, mm-hmm. and running up and down the street yelling, extra, extra.
Yeah. The kind of thing we used to see in a lot of old movies with the paper boy running around. Today, people don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. Now, then how did life change at home before you joined the Army? I mean, was there rationing going on or that kind of thing?
I was an athlete starting from 4th grade. Benton Harbor is noted all over Michigan as an athletic plant. Mm-hmm. And I started in the 4th grade running and jumping, shooting baskets and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And went right into the junior high, and we had programs in basketball and some football, and we played football by ourselves and that kind of thing. Okay. And the basketball was Saturday morning stuff, and in our neighborhood we had running meets and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Now, after Pearl Harbor,
after Pearl
When you
Harbor.
go back to school, at that point, how were things different? How did things change in your community after Pearl Harbor?
Well, the things that happened, they asked for people to join the Army or Navy or Air Force, and Marines. And I don't keep saying the Marines will be next to us all the time, you know, because we were #1 division. And it had the generals and that, they were all aware of it. And then we moved from Texas.
Okay, you're kind of jumping at you're going ahead a little bit. Let us
Okay.
back up. I'm asking about life before you enter the Army.
Oh,
So in 1942, and you're still in school at that point.
yeah, 1943.
Yeah, but before
Yeah.
you joined,
Yeah.
what were things like then? What were things like at home in Benton Harbor after the war starts?
We were patriotic people, and as we were in the school, the teachers talked to us that way. And if you narrow it down real quick, my 5th and 6th grade teacher had a brother in the service in Alaska building the highway. And I was interested in that. And she used to read every letter he wrote back. And then we would write, and then she'd write back to him. And so the questions were answering back and forth there. And when I got to be 50 years old, I went to Alaska. And all the way on the road, from the start to the finish. No?
Okay. Now, did you want to get into the Army as soon as you could?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's why your
My
mother
uncle
signs.
wanted me in as fast as he could.
Right.
Yeah.
So you told us, so your mother signed for you.
Yes.
And you asked to go into the artillery.
Yeah.
All right. Now, where did you report to?
Detroit.
Okay. And what happened there?
And in Detroit, they gave you shots and examined you real close. And they were looking for people that were in good body shape, good thing, could run fast, could jump, and the whole thing. And this was special training at Camp Walters, Texas.
Okay.
That's where I ended up.
Okay. How did you get to Camp Walters, Texas?
By train.
Okay. And what do you
There
remember?
were no planes in those
Yeah,
days.
yeah. What do you remember about that train ride?
It was a long, boring ride to get to Texas, Mineral Wells, Texas. They dropped us off there.
Okay.
Camp Walters, beautiful camp.
All right.
And that's when my life changed, when 5 of the officers and enlisted men were training us. They were captured by the Japanese in the Philippine Islands. And they escaped. The whole company did that. We're talking about 1,000 people, you know. And we had 5 of them that were training us. And we could run faster, jump higher than they could. We cleaned them up on the course that we had out there that you had to have instruction on.
All right. Okay. Now, was this your basic training?
Basic training.
Okay.
21 weeks.
All right. And did these instructors, did they tell you how they escaped or what happened to them?
No, not really.
Okay.
We were so interested in what they were doing for us right there. And it kept us alive, kept me alive. I've lost all my friends that
Now,
were there.
when you started training down there, did you know what division you were going to be in?
No.
Okay, so this is just basic for everybody.
Yeah, basic.
Okay. And how much emphasis did they put on discipline?
All of it, solid. Your non-coms, the sergeants and corporals and all of that. And be sure you salute all the officers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what happened when you did something wrong?
Well, I never did anything wrong. I went along what they had because they were going to keep me alive.
All right.
Right.
Now, did some of the other men have
Yes.
more trouble?
Oh, yes. They're the people that have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for KP service. Anybody goofing around with that whole thing. And we were kept busy. We had our own football team, our own softball team, right there in the campgrounds. And so in order to be in those things, you had to behave yourself and mind the rules.
Okay.
When they said you're going to trot for a half a mile, well, you trotted that. If you didn't, you were in trouble. Yeah.
All right.
And obstacle courses were big in our time. Big. I had a big one at our high school, built by the athletic director, who was the ex-Army guy, and he's too old to get in now. Yeah. But he said, you have to have this. Boy, that was the circus for us.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, was this, how long did the basic training last?
21 weeks.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
a long.
Back on the train and over to New York, and not too far from where we could see the Statue of Liberty. And then they shipped us off to Wales, really.
Okay. Now, at this point, had you been assigned to your unit yet?
No.
So you still don't know who you're going to be?
Right. More training on the beaches in Wales and that area. Yeah.
Okay. Because I guess the official history of the division indicates that they formed up in the U.S.
Yes.
and then they went over to England and did more training.
Yeah.
But did you join them when they
First was
were?
Ireland.
Right, yeah. Okay.
That was one group. And we went to Wales.
Right.
Cardiff, Wales.
Okay.
And just a great time. A great time. And with some British guys or pros at that, because they just got out of Dunkirk.
All right. So
I say that, nobody knows what I mean by that.
Oh, well, we do.
Yeah.
All right. But that was back in 1940. Now, when did you arrive in Wales?
44.
Okay. And about
January of 44.
All right. So the second division is already in Britain by that time.
They were, Ireland.
Yeah, they were in Ireland. Okay. So you're still just a replacement. Tell me about the trip across the ocean.
It was a beautiful ship, Ile de France, and it was capacity loaded in there, 4 high in the bunks, down low, and every day we'd go up on top for in case of emergency, a torpedo might get at us or something like that. Told us what we had to do, and the rope ladders we were thrown overboard. But we didn't go down the rope ladders. They just said, there they are. You have to go down there and get off the ship by the rope ladder.
Now, was this a converted ocean liner?
Yes.
Passenger ship?
A beautiful ship. And I'll have to say 20,000.
Okay. And did you sail by yourself? Or
Yes. We could outrun any problem like that. But the Navy was around. Not too far from us all the time.
Okay. So you had escorts of some kind?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And then we went to Scotland first. And then we got a train from Scotland. And guys went in different directions. And I went to Wales.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how long did you spend in Cardiff?
Cardiff?
Yeah.
6 months.
Okay.
Almost to the day.
Now, how did the civilians treat the American soldiers?
Great. The restaurants and that, the fish and chips, that kind of thing, yeah. And people were great, and they appreciated us. And I was, of course, one of the lucky ones that got to camp a long ways from where the Germans were bombing, but we could hear it. We could hear it at night, every single night. The Germans would fly over, we'd fire up and make noise, and the bombs going off. Okay. That just conditioned us for what we expected on D-Day.
Right. Now, what kind of training were you getting by this time?
Infantry.
Okay.
Scouts.
Okay. Explain a little bit. What is a scout and what do they do?
We would leave at night, go across the line, back of the enemy, and then during daytime we'd hide in the fields. And when it got dark again, we started to move around, and we had an artillery observer with us that told his division, the artillery division, what we were looking for. The mortar groups, the German mortars, and the German artillery. And that's how far, sometimes 10 to 15 miles behind German lines.
Okay.
And we were trained well in Camp Walters, Texas. How to sneak around there. Cops and robbers in the neighborhoods. Yeah.
Okay.
Cowboys and Indians.
All right. Now, when you enlisted, you had asked to be in the artillery.
Artillery, right.
But now it sounds like you're training to be in the infantry.
they took us, the guys that could run the fastest, could jump the highest, and on the obstacle courses. And when you want to, you'd have a race on Saturdays or Sundays and make $5 or $10. Guy would think he was going to beat me, or beat one of us on there. No way.
Okay.
Because I was in great condition when I went in the service, because I trained to be a football player in Benton Harbor.
Okay. So because of your athletic ability, they took you out and they made you a scout.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And we learn all kinds of things in that type of atmosphere. Yeah.
Okay. Now, at what point do you get assigned to your unit?
Oh, at D-Day.
So you didn't join the division until D-Day?
Until after D-Day. And the pictures show I came up with the one of the regiments. There's the 9th Regiment and the 23rd Regiment and 38th Regiment. That's my regiment. I'm very proud of it all the way.
Okay. So when did you meet, and then which company did you join?
A G Company,
Okay.
2nd Battalion, G Company.
All right. And so when did you meet those men?
I met them on the way to Trevieres. It was about 14 miles from the beach.
Okay. So,
We were replacement people.
okay. So how did they, so basically talk about that time. So when did you leave Cardiff? Was that
We left it for D-Day.
so on D-Day
Oh no.
or after D-Day or before?
After D-Day, we were in a boat on D-Day,
Okay.
a big liner with 3,000 or 4,000 people, guys on there,
Okay. Was that a liner?
all
was
well-trained people.
Was that a troop transport ship now?
Yeah.
Or- okay.
Yeah.
Now, did it have landing craft to land you with?
I think
or-
they followed us, because all they had to do is come from Southampton. You could see France in a hurry there when you got out there in the North Sea.
All right.
Yeah.
Or English Channel
A
anyway.
lot of noise,
Yeah.
because over back behind us, coming out of Britain, are big battleships firing guns that could cover many 20 miles out. And the shells were going over the top of us. And they were trying to clean off the beaches. The Germans had prepared all those rigs with railroad ties and all kinds of tracks on there.
Okay.
And we used it to protect us from the machine guns up on top of the hill.
All right. Now, on what day did you land on the beach?
On D-Day, that was December 6th, 7th, or June 6th.
Well, June 6th was D-Day, but did
D-Day.
you actually land on D-Day?
No,
You
we
landed-
were 7th or 8th, right
Yeah,
in there.
Right. I
There
think
was so much confusion, I never can get it straightened out. I think in my books you'll be able to figure it out there.
Okay. Now, do you remember, did you spend, more than one night on the ship waiting to land, or just
Yes,
one? Okay.
yes.
Yeah. So you may
The
have landed.
8th, I think that's the 8th
Yeah.
when we came in there.
Okay. And then when it's time for you to land. How does that work?
It worked with the rope and the net that they threw overboard, and you climbed down there and got in the landing craft. And of course the landing crafts are famous in our war. And some were blown right out of the water with maybe 40, 50 guys on it. And it was quite a serious thing. And then when it dropped down, out you went, right up to your shoulders in water.
Okay. So they drop you out that
Yeah.
far?
Yep. Not that far. Sandbars and all that stuff on the ocean. And the water was cold, that's all I know. And we carried our rifles up on top. I had a Thompson.
So submachine gun.
Yeah, submachine gun, yeah.
How much were you carrying? What kinds of things did you carry with you when you
Blanket
landed?
and rain in your half of a tent, because it takes 2 guys to cover up a foxhole with a tent
Right.
over the top,
Okay. And what else did you carry?
A shovel and a bayonet, and that's a do or die tool.
Now, were you bringing rations and food?
Yes, the K rations. The C's were much later. in there, and 4 or 5 packs of that. And I didn't smoke, and I didn't drink, so I didn't have to worry about that part of the whole thing. I had one thing in mind: get ashore and get in the hole.
Okay. So when you landed, was there any firing or was it quiet?
Oh no, there was so much noise. Till this day, it's too much noise.
Okay.
I was in the service for 28 months, and I think for 20 months, there's nothing but that noise, the big guns and that.
Okay. But the Germans weren't shooting at you.
Yes, they were.
There were still Germans shooting on the beach?
right there, right there. We had to get them off the beach.
Okay.
Had to get them off all the way to Trevieres. That was 14 miles up there, and a couple other small towns in the way.
Right. But I was asking, on the actual landing beach itself, because you landed on Omaha Beach.
Omaha.
And were there still any Germans on Omaha Beach, or were they behind there?
They were behind.
Yeah. Okay.
Once we got to the beach, we could see the fortresses that they had there, 6 to 8 foot thick.
Yep.
And the big guns, all they do is blow big chunks of cement out. Yeah, but the soldiers were still there, and a lot of them hid out in the trenches. You never knew where anything was until you walked right up on top of it.
Okay.
And they were prepared for us on there.
All right.
Used a lot of hand grenades.
Okay.
Throw them over the hill.
So you're still helping clear out the Germans
Yeah.
from that area.
You're right. In that 14-mile loop across there like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Trevieres is only, it's a village that's inland. It's only a couple of miles inland.
Yeah,
It's not
right.
too far. But so that's where you headed?
Yeah, that's where that was our goal.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, did you join your company outside of the town or in it?
Yes, all of a sudden I was in the 23rd Regiment.
Okay.
And we didn't know. When I got up there, I was put in the 38th, which I'm very proud of today. You know. And officers were well trained, and Sergeant Blackmore, he watched every one of us. And he see anything wrong, he'd grab you right by your gear and pull you down. Said, "Now what did I tell you?" You know, that kind of a guy. And he kept us alive. He kept us alive.
Okay. Now, did you start doing scouting work right away?
Right away.
Okay.
Right away. They assigned us to that space going up there, and our work was done at night, so we could get behind them, and it worked out pretty good. And according to the 5 guys that trained us in camp, they did some tricks we didn't even know they were there. They were there, and those are the things that we carried from the basic training. And then the extra training we stay in the 6 months in Cardiff, Wales.
Right.
Yeah, Swansea, really.
Okay. Now, do you remember the first time you went out as a scout? The first time you did a scouting mission?
Facing Germans?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I remember real well.
Okay. Well, what happened?
Yeah, we were told there, and Harold was my buddy. He was Elvis' first scout. And he was 30, 40 feet ahead of us there. And I was down back there, and we were spread out 30, 40 foot, because one bullet could knock off 5 or 6 guys. You know, one from machine gun is so rapid, coming right at you. And we had to be careful we didn't get into where they'd wrap the ground. They'd get the ground and then raise up there, and another gun would take over after that. They had all kinds of drills, and we had to solve those before they bring up the rest of the group in there.
Now, what kind of country were you in?
With famous hedgerows.
Okay.
That was started 2,000 years before that by the Romans. So we got the history of that, what we had. And they were from 4 foot high to 12 foot high. When they plowed their fields, they'd take the big stones out, throw them on the side on their property lines. And everywhere was a hedgerow. And the Germans had them all spotted, probably had them by number. And so all they had to do is look at their map and it's almost wipe us out there, you know, they're that quick. And our job was to get to those guys that were with the mortars and the artillery.
Right. Okay. So tell me about that first mission out there. I was asking you, your first time out there as a scout, you said you were spread out. Harold was your first scout.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
what actually
Harold.
happened then?
Well, we went out like that, and all of a sudden they stopped us. There are snipers there in the woods. They're in the trees, and you got to get them out of there.
Okay.
And so that's what we worked on, the cops and robbers thing we did as kids, you know.
Yeah. So,
And they were in the tree, and I have a rifle, an Italian rifle, sniper's rifle. And how it got there, I don't know, but it had a telescope on it, the whole thing, and I found it there
Okay.
because we dropped the guy out of the tree. And I got his rifle. And here I am carrying a Sub Thompson and that rifle. Well, I ain't having bullets for the rifle, but anyway, I did mail it home. When we did stop about 10 days more in there, but we were able to put the things we found, the revolvers and the rifles and little things from the soldiers that we overrun.
right. Okay. Now, how would you kind of make your way forward if you're trying to go out on one of these missions and you're in the
Okay.
hedgerow country? How did you go about doing that?
We had a tank. The tanks got up there and they tried to go up the banks. Some of them were too high, and they go tumbling down the other side, but they're all guns firing all the time we're there. So we're behind tanks.
Well, I was asking though
Yeah.
about when you're a scout.
Yeah,
You
right.
don't have any tanks with you when you're a scout, right?
Right. But they like to have us out ahead of them.
Right.
And they, some of the new officers, in my books you'll find the number of officers that we lost. There were people, because he's an officer, he had to be up there in front. No, you got to be more than that. You have to be really exercise that program, you know. And we cried like the rest of the guys when we'd lose an officer or one of our sergeants and that whole thing. We were sick about it, made us mad. That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm just trying to sort of picture a little bit sort of what you're doing, or in the time that you're in Normandy. I mean, you start at Trevieres. Now, did they capture that town after you got there, or had they captured it already?
They had captured it before we got there.
All right. So
Now, we were 3rd Battalion.
right.
The 23rd and the 9th, rough outfit.
Okay.
They thought they were rough. Okay. But they got there, and we didn't care who, if there were any Germans in the town, because the people who lived there would tell us where they were at. And the Germans knew that, so they got out of the towns as fast as they could.
Okay.
You know, and you build up a friendship with those people. And I have a couple letters from the high school that was in Trevieres.
Okay.
And things like that bring back other great stories, you know.
Okay. So when you're moving during the day, would you
Yeah.
ride on tanks and go forward?
Not
and then-
really.
Okay.
Not really, no. Tanks never happened to us till we crossed the Rhine River.
All right. Because I was trying to sort of sort out what was happening in
Yeah.
Normandy back at the beginning.
Yeah.
Now, the division moves inland towards St. Lo. And
St. Lo and Trevieres.
yeah, after
line
Trevieres.
there.
Well, and then St. Lo is farther inland.
Yes,
Okay.
right.
Now, the division fought a battle at a place called Hill 192.
That's what I was going to just
Okay.
I knew it. The 23rd went in there and beat them up pretty good, but they lost. They lost it, and they pulled up my outfit in there, the 38th, and our luck, the Germans scampered out of there. They dropped back into St. Lo because we had to get that hill because they were using it for their artillery scouts in that whole works, and they had built big towers on Hill 192 in there, and I happened to be one of the lucky guys to get there first, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after you got there, what happened next?
We reformed into our own groups.
Right.
And we picked up the artillery guys, and we'd go out and locate the 81 mortars. They're the bad news to us, and the 88 artillery. And they were doubly bad news. And find them right away, and they'd radio back, And the radios in that time was not a cell phone. It was a pack on the back of a guy that carried a pistol. That's the only defense that guy had. But the officers that were there from the artillery were giving them all the places that we thought, or maybe they were. 'Cause they were clever about moving around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, would the Germans try to find you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They knew, well, the Germans knew everything we did. We just had more guys, more people, and after a while, more tanks. Right. And that's where when I say tanks, they had power blades on some of them.
Right.
They just knocked the hole in the wall and bust through there and start firing the whole thing. Let us go through then, walking,
So that's
running across the
They
field.
were doing that at the end of July when they have the breakout
Yes.
from Normandy and they
Right.
take St. Lo.
Break
and they
out
go
of Germany.
forward. Okay. Now, while you were in Normandy still before the breakout, did you manage to find any German batteries or guns
Yes.
that your people knocked
Okay.
out?
Right. Well, we found them and located them so that the artillery observers
Right.
could radio back with a guy with that big pack on his back.
Yep.
And we had to protect him because the Germans tried to get our radio.
Right.
That would, half of their battle is over with then, see. But there were a lot of things like that, and I refer to cowboys and Indians and all the other stuff. Little tricks like that to learn or kick the can.
Now, how many men would be together if you're going out scouting? How many of you would there be?
10 to 16.
Okay.
That's almost a whole squad. But you don't want a squad to get wiped out because that's part of the drawing, the map.
Right.
And we had to report back right away if we're losing guys, so they'd force some guys up, come up there in the middle of the night. And I always have the famous story there, halt, What do you mean, halt? Halt. And so the guy would say, Kellogg's. And you better know the answer. Do you know the answer to that?
I'd go with cornflakes.
That's right.
American
That's
culture.
a simple one, but we had stiffer ones the further out we got into France.
Okay. Now, if somebody did get hit, if you took any casualties, what would you do with them?
Medic. You
Okay.
you yell medic.
Well, but if you're out on a patrol, did you have a medic who would be in your squad?
Yeah, right. Yeah. One of the 16 guys sometimes, one of the 17th guys. But he just carried the bandages,
Yeah. But then what could you do? I mean, if one of your men is wounded and you're behind enemy lines,
Yeah, right.
do you carry him out? What do you do?
Well, yeah, we'd carry him out.
Okay.
We'd get him out at night. We had to go through the line to get back with our company through had to go back through the German, and they knew we were out there somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
And as I say, they had every hedgerow was numbered in their life.
Right. Okay. Now, once the breakout, I guess one of the things that
Calais.
happened at St. Lo was at one point we sent large numbers of heavy bombers.
Yes, 2,000.
Yeah. And did you hear any of that or see
I
any of
laid
that?
in the hole watching them going by. They're wing to wing. And all we were doing is cheering. There was the only noise we could hear was the anti-aircraft from the Germans, But they really combed St. Lo out.
Yeah. Now, did you go through the town?
No.
Okay. You went around?
We went to Brest. We were going to Brest.
But to get to Brest, you had to get there somehow.
Yeah, the crossroads. That was a battle. Now, Battle Lake and crossroads on French property, and another small town, St. Mary, something like that, that we had to run right through the town and let the guys behind us get the Germans out of them. We had to get in deep into France, as
Right.
deep as we could, so we could get to meet up with the 4th Division to get to Brest, the
Right.
submarine port. And that was really protected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so Brest is all the way out at the end of Brittany,
Yes,
so that's a good
yeah.
ways from Normandy heading west.
Right.
Now, what happened to you during that advance?
That's where I jumped over here and turned this foot to ankle here and fractured down in here in the front part here.
Okay, so you managed to break your ankle while
Yeah.
chasing the Germans.
Yeah. Fractured, really.
So not a full
Yeah.
break.
Everything was stretched because I had a pack on, and I weighed 200 pounds, 220 pounds, and great shape. Great shape. Yeah.
Okay. So once you hurt your ankle, what did they do with you?
They pulled me out. It hurt. It really hurt, and I thought it was broken at first. So I'm crawling around my hands and knees for a while to let people know that there's an open space where I was out there. And of course we were scouts. The whole group were scouts, and we were all different scouts. And the medic looked at it, and he said, "You have to go back to the AIDS center." And so I crawled back to the AIDS center, and then the following day they put me on a big airplane and took me back to the hospital.
Okay. And where was the hospital?
Of course, in England.
Okay.
That's where that big plane landed there with a lot of P-38s, my favorite airplane, the twin boomer. And they put us on the plane. We're all laying down on there, and the plane took off and landed on the other side. Real quick trip across there.
Right.
And the hospital, people waiting for us there. And they had crude x-rays in those days. And they just decided that they would have to build a frame for my foot on there because they couldn't see if it was broken down a little lower in the foot part of it, that foot. And might have taken the rest of my life to have a broken bone there, and they couldn't handle it. Yeah.
So how long did you stay in the hospital?
4 weeks.
Okay.
4 weeks. Really 3 weeks, and I had 1 week of freedom. Met a lot of great people.
Okay, so could you leave the hospital?
Yes, leave the grounds, in fact. Leave the grounds there. We'd go into town, and it's Swansea
Okay.
there.
So you're back kind of on your home turf again.
Back there and met some guys that had about the same thing I had in there. And one guy was from the 1st Division, and they were always bumping up against us. We get twisted around sometime. You guys get out of here, we're here.
That's right.
But that's the way it was because France is really a small country. Everything is small.
Well,
Yeah.
And initially, 1st Division went on Omaha Beach ahead of you, and so they were right in that same beachhead area when you were coming out too. And several other times later on, they were right next to you.
Right next to you, and the paratroopers, we were still picking up paratroopers along. That's where the joke came with Kellogg's. And the guy, if he'd say brand flakes, we'd let him in and watch him. But it was cornflakes. That was the main drop-off on there. And of course, they had their own codes too. The guys in the glider troops, and that seemed to be, we were in that in the flatlands in there. But they had the land in there where all these little high wood hedgerows were at there. And a lot of them were buried in the nose of that plane right there into that bank that was there.
Okay. Now, when did you go back to France?
I went back to after 4 weeks there, and I went back to Paris.
Okay.
I didn't know my outfit was there. They just dropped me off, and then they told me that the 2nd Battalion of Company G was there. I thought it was great, So that's when I called my 2 grandparents there, great-grandparents.
Okay.
And the first one I called was the Bohauers, and they were tickled to death. They couldn't stay, And they were going to try to come to us. It's pretty hard to do that because we took over all the hotels there.
Right.
We were there to guard trains from Paris, France, to the front line in Belgium.
Right. So is this September when you get back, or is it September?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And so you could use the French phone system to call people? Was that how you did it?
Well, the lady and the man were in the hotel running the hotel there.
Okay.
They took care of that part. So I got the Ducastles, my grandma's there, and she said, if the Germans come back here, they're going to kill us because we're talking to you. And I said, we're here, and nobody's going to kill you.
Right.
We're here. And my grandfather said when I went back to the United States a year later, there are a bunch of rummies over there on your grandma's side.
Right.
Anyway, it was great. It was great.
And when you were in Paris, did you get
Paris.
time to just go see the city?
Yes. I got pictures of me hugging a big part of the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe. The both of them stand out.
Yep.
And I heard about them from my grandparents before I ever thought of a war, you know.
Now, when you were a kid, did you learn any French?
Yes, I took French in junior high.
Okay.
Our junior high was the 9th grade, yeah.
Okay.
And I had some of the words down pretty good.
Okay. But did your grandparents ever speak French at home?
Yes, when the storms were bad, we were in Lake Michigan. They would talk in French, and the maid never knew it either. And never knew how to speak French either.
All right. Okay. So, how long did you stay in Paris?
2 weeks.
Okay.
And I had 2 trips to the front lines.
Okay.
Got back in the noise again.
All right. And so, where was your division when you rejoined them? Where was the division now?
We were up in Belgium.
Okay.
And pretty close to the big forest there, the Hurtgen forest. And we took somebody's place that was there. And we were only going to be there a short time, but it ended up being almost a month.
All right.
And so we deluxed our holes in the ground.
Okay. Now, when you were there, were you attacking or were you just holding your position?
Holding ground.
Okay.
We had to wait for the British to come up on our left over there and wait for the 4th Division and a little bit of something in the 1st Division. I never did figure that one out.
Okay. So you weren't attacking in the Hurtgen forest, you were just near it.
Holding.
You were holding.
Holding.
Okay. Now, did the Germans bother you while you were there?
Yes, they did. They learned how to make their bombs. They'd explode above the trees and knock all the snow down and limbs on that. And so we take all the extra stuff that fell down after we survived. Some guys didn't. They got caught with the shrapnel.
Right.
A lot of shrapnel, come 88s, you know. And sometimes we said that they shoot right directly into the forest, right at the trees and that stuff. And our safest place was facing the Germans and behind a tree. Grab a hole and wrap your arms around a tree. Like our pine forest that we have in Michigan for the CCCs.
Yep.
The same way. And the forests were big time money for those people.
Now, were you doing scouting work then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
We'd go back when we didn't have a job to do. We'd go back maybe a mile and pull ourselves together again because we were living out there on nothing but K rations.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how close did you get to getting caught?
Did I? Oh, only one bullet. One of the Germans ran out of bullets, and I ran out of cartridge bullets too.
Okay. But
Yeah.
did they ever get close to capturing you?
No, they were dead.
Okay.
They were dead.
Okay. So basically, you didn't really have any close calls?
Oh, yeah. You make a mistake sometime on there, but the guy will back you up on it. One of your buddies will back you up on that if you didn't see him. And we're talking about scouts. Our job was scouting, so there was a lot of distance between us.
Yep.
And they could tell us, you know, and hand signals helped.